What's up, coin traders? Thanks for joining me for the show. How's it going? We're looking at Celestia TIA on that ticker. Not an overall bad day right now so far for altcoins. And as you can see, we're looking at Bitcoin being down about 4%. Meanwhile, a lot of the altcoins are down less than that, around even, slightly down, or even up on the day. So definitely very nice to see, especially when we talk about dominance coming in. But anyway, we're going to be talking about Celestia here on the video and show today. So the first thing right now on this daily chart, like we mentioned, a lot of the altcoins are starting to do pretty good today. So very nice to see a little bit of a bounce and retracement. Now, even looking at the shorter term, you can see this chart playing out for Celestia, coming off of the low, finding a new higher high, higher low, and then now trying to work on a new higher high coming in. So very nice signs for a potential bottom on the daily here for Celestia. And this is pretty key too, because especially after we've had such a very long stair-steppy straight linear pattern to the downside, this is nice to see a break in that overall change, because typically when we find these linear type patterns, quite often we end up seeing a flood of bearish volume coming in, just pushing another flood to the downside. So in this instance, it's actually nice to see kind of a reversal playing out, which actually is good too, because if we look at the most recent low we were looking at for Celestia, we saw a low coming in of 760. So right now actually holding a higher low. So we got down to 892, and then previous before that we got down to 891. So technically held a higher low in that instance. So now we are looking at holding a longer term higher low, especially when we talk about this chart as it relates to some of the longer ones where we actually ran up, rejected from these exponential moving average bands, pulled back, and now sitting in a higher low. So hopefully we can actually see a test now of prices in between these the 26 and 50 period EMAs on this daily chart, and then actually see a new price break in a new higher high. So that is the first step in changing the trend, especially when we do have a chart set up like this that has been in a longer term downtrend since we found our high just after the start of February on the 10th of February, when we did make a new all-time high for 2114. So like we mentioned, a real big thing right now is just the rejection from the exponential moving averages, since we have found it as a very relevant point of resistance here before. So started off finding resistance in between the 12 and 26, then it flipped to the 26 and the 50, which is exactly where we're at right now. So obviously first we do need to see a run up, and especially in these instances, you can see that on these tests made several attempts at bear flags here. So pulled back, bear flag, pulled back, bear flag, and now we are actually trying to set that higher low so we can actually run up and change the trend here and actually start to flip these exponential moving averages and find our longer term bottom. So with that, if we actually switch over into the weekly chart here, this is exactly what we're talking about, where on the low, we had a nice big long lower shadow indicating a lot of dip buying. And along with that, the next follow-on bar was actually an inside bar, which does mean that the price trading of that bar fit within the price trading range of the previous weekly candle. So if we look down here on volume, we're actually looking at a big increase in volume, which is interesting since this is an inside bar. Now the following bearish week as well is an inside bar, but if we look at the volume, very minimal volume. So a lot of decrease in sell pressure, and on the buying side, despite it being an inside bar, actually had a lot more volume coming in for the bulls, indicating, especially after this big long lower shadow, that likely we were going to be finding a longer term support, and that the longer term pullback was going to be coming to a close here soon. So if we look at a Fibonacci, for example, from the low up to the all-time high, we're looking at a retracement which is perfect down to the 61.8%. So right now, very nice defense, holding weekly closes on top of this level, and the 61.8% is coming in at 944. So as you can see, long lower shadows and wicking below this level, but still maintaining very nice support. Obviously, with about 4.5 days left on the current weekly candle, still anything could happen, but right now we are shaping up like a lot of good things are going to be coming about for a lot of the altcoins, and there's a lot of signs that we have been finding our bottoms across the crypto space. Now, Celestia is a very new crypto, so not a lot of data for it, as you can see, which does mean that if we pull up technical indicators for the weekly, not a lot coming in. So it's still good that we actually have some data coming in, but obviously pulling back from overbought levels, pulling back now, we're looking at a current RSI at 51.84. So hopefully we can find support on top of the 50 line. That would be a very good sign. And then from there, seeing this RSI trend back to the upside. If we look at stochastic RSI, very much at the bottom right now, we're looking at levels of 250 for both lines right now. So despite being way below the 20 line, we actually have a lot of potential to see a nice bullish cross and actually see this weekly stochastic RSI shoot back to the upside, hopefully making a trend above the 80 line. And that would also propel the RSI as well back to the upside. So that's pretty much what we're finding and hoping for right now. And even looking at overall volume, like we talked about, huge decrease in overall volume. This is very common for a lot of cryptos, especially off of the launch, where we have a lot of volume coming in initially off the hype and then an extreme pullback. But like we mentioned, so volume tapering down off towards the high does mean a likely sell-off. But right now, not a lot of sustained and increased selling pressure as well. So especially after bouncing off the 61.8% Fibonacci retracement, we are looking at a lot stronger potentials for actually finding that longer term support and actually either consolidating along this level and trying to make that reversal to see prices push back to the upside. Flipping over into the 2-day chart, just want to talk about volume once again, because coming off of the low had very nice bearish volume on the sell, but right now the most recent 3 bearish bars that we saw actually had almost very minimal volume. And so that's one of the things, especially now, given that we're about 5 hours from closing, that we have this nice bullish volume coming in on this reversal hammer candle so far, especially holding a higher low. This is a much better sign as well. So low bearish volume, pulling back, showing a decreased sign in sell pressure, along with holding a higher low over the previous low of this move. So despite getting stuck up at this attempt to break through the 12 and 26 period exponential moving averages, we're still looking very nice to see another attempt of that. Up overhead, though, going to be looking strong for resistance points coming in at several levels, and specifically looking at 1183 as well as 1228. So very strong points of resistance, as you can see on this current move. Looking left a little bit more, big point of support and resistance. Wick down below showing support, and then obviously looking way far left, big point of support as well, especially look at all of these lower shadows on these candles. Big point. So we know that this zone is going to be extremely resistive, so that is going to be the point, especially after holding a higher low, that we're going to need to see more volume coming in to actually push the prices of Celestia above this zone, which coincidentally would also align very much and very nicely with how these exponential moving averages are set up. So big zone right here, and that way if we actually do get above this level and into the 13s, it's very probable in that instance, especially changing the shorter term trend, that we will likely find support on top of this big massive zone, and then that'll be one of the very good signs to continue prices to the upside and establish this as our longer term trend low. Just a reminder too, if any of these concepts don't necessarily make sense, drop me a note in the comment sections below, and I would love to get back and actually clarify or even potentially do another video clarifying some of them a little bit more, or even reach out to me over on Twitter or X at @coin_trades is the handle over there. So now I want to pull up technical indicators for this 2-day chart, because as we talk about multiple times, we always talk about bearish divergence. So this is a very good indication of it. So for example, we have our low, higher high, and then even a higher high. But with RSI, we have our high, lower high in RSI, and then lower high in RSI. So trend to the downside, meanwhile, trend to the upside in price. Usually does mean, especially when we have 3 points, that that reversal is coming. So we did have a price pullback, continue to see downside pullback and pressure, finding our oversold levels, which does correlate to our low, which usually does signal kind of the bottom and bounce of the move. So since we're actually finding the first time that we've actually had this oversold level for the RSI, and we actually closed at 30.09. So for the close, actually barely maintained levels above the 30 line, which typically we do find low, but we know that just given the size of this long lower shadow on this candle, the RSI extended well below that into the 30 line and down into the 20s. Now, so stochastic RSI for the 2-day was also about the lowest that we have seen, and we did reject previously before hitting across the bullish 80 line. So right now we actually do probably need to see a little bit of a rollover or even a bullish cross to actually see prices push back up. That would be the most bullish thing right now, especially given the setup of this RSI. Now, we do also have this little trend line that kind of correlates to the exponential moving averages, but we actually know it's very relevant and very much been proven to be extremely effective right now. So for this trend line, starting at the beginning, obviously it had big point of resistance, support, and then support before breaking it, now resistance and resistance. So once again, this is going to align with the exponential moving averages as well. So very effective price level resistance. We have exponential moving average resistance, and then we also have trend line resistance. So the point once again is that if we do actually get above and into the 13s, all of this downside resistive pressure is going to be washed away, and we are going to be flipping it back into that supportive level. So despite right now having these exponential moving averages in a bearish setup right now, and still seeing them as resistance with path of least resistance to the downside, the fact that now we are seeing more bullish volume coming in on the current move, as well as holding a higher low, does give a little bit more precedence to the fact that we're going to see another attempt and run up of this $12 to $13 level, which is exactly what we want to see. And especially given all this minimal and falling off selling pressure, it's going to be a little bit more likely for the bulls to actually be able to push prices back up in that zone, as long as we do get a big strengthening move out of the rest of the crypto space. Because as we know, very much we are correlated across the whole crypto space most of the time. Flipping over into the hourly really quick before we wrap up, because I do want to talk about this signal of being a bottom, and kind of one of the reasons why we're expecting this to be one of the lows to hold a longer term higher low is that just given this setup right now, especially holding a higher low, seeing new trend highs, higher lows, higher highs. And if we actually go ahead and invert this chart and we look at it from the other angle, we can see that this would actually be a pretty bearish setup right now, especially seeing lower highs, lower lows, and then obviously this big sell-off, especially with a lot of volume coming in. So we know that this is kind of a bearish setup when it is in the other direction. So now to see it in a bullish perspective, we know that this is kind of a bottom indicator, which does mean, especially on the hour, that it is going to be forming a higher low on some of the longer term charts, which is exactly what we want to see. And right now, especially looking to make new higher highs and break through some of the short-term resistance and get above that big $10 psychological level. So overall, I think Celestia is going to be an extremely big name this crypto cycle. We know that it's a good project, and a lot of hype has been coming into it from airdrops and other potential, and obviously a very big sector of growing interest. So definitely nothing out of the ordinary after such a big pullback, finding a bottom, and then now looking like we are changing the trend, finding that higher low and just running up. So again, all eyes are going to be on the growth above the $13 level. Obviously, from current prices, that's still a pretty big gain. So we would be looking at effectively over the $13 level, about a 33% move. Doesn't seem like much for the crypto space. Could actually see that in a day. But anyway, yeah, that's pretty much what we're looking at for Celestia right now. It does seem very strong, like we have set our bottom for this pullback. So right now, just patience is the name of the game as we do start to change the trend in the shorter and longer terms. So with that, that is going to go ahead and wrap up the show for today on Celestia TIA on that ticker. Hope you all enjoyed. If you did, please hit the thumbs up, like, and subscribe if you have not done so just yet. Also, don't forget to drop me a comment in the comment sections down below, or reach out to me over on Twitter at @coin_trades. Do love getting back to each and every one of you. Also, do appreciate all the continuous love and support. It does mean so much. Stay safe, take care, coin traders, and I'll catch you back in the next video.